All right, welcome to Undefining the podcast where we break down labels, expectations, and everything in between. I'm your host, Glo Butler, and each week we dive into stories of transformation, reinventions, and self-discovery because identity is never just one thing. Today's episode is about identity, storytelling, and humor. How the way we tell our story shapes not just how we see ourselves, but how the world sees us. And who better to have this conversation with than a comedian who's mastered the art of weaving identity into comedy. So I'm looking forward to this conversation with J0NNEA. I think you guys are in for a treat, you guys. Check it out. For today's guest, we have J0NNEA HERMAN. J0NNEA is a queer Afro-Latinx stand-up comedian based in Brooklyn, New York. Part storyteller, part hater, J0NNEA's comedy brings a sharp, honest, and always hilarious perspective for the stage. J0NNEA has been a finalist for the 7th Annual Comedy Mob Festival and the 2024 Yes New York Queer Comedy Festival, as well as semifinalists for the 2023 Because They're Funny Breakout Comedian of the Year. Opened for the incredible Sabrina Wu at Zane's in Chicago and performed in cities across the country from LA to New Orleans to West Hartford, Connecticut. Here in New York City, you can catch spots like the Greenwich Village Comedy Club, the Bell House, and Rodney's Comedy Club. Welcome, J0NNEA, on Undefining. How are you?
Hello, Glo. Thank you for that. Thank you for that intro.
I had to hype
I'm
you up a
doing
bit.
well.
Yeah.
I'm doing fine. Working from home, so
Yeah.
on the clock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long have you been working from home?
So I've been at this place for like 2.5 years, but I mean, it started because of COVID.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
and my previous job tried to bring us back into the office, but it was poorly planned, and I asked for a raise, they said no, so then I
Yeah.
found a new job, and so that's
Oh, cool.
where the now I'm permanently at home,
I
remote
love that.
worker. So
Yeah. I think that's everyone's dream, but I like work part time from home, and there have been times I have to leave. But I would just say that there are days I don't want to even get out of my pajamas. Like, what is it called? Like you have your soft pants, and then you have your pants that you're like ready to go.
yes,
but
yes.
but I like it. I'm actually like I want to do it more like full time. I want to be always. I just want to have options to do whatever I want. Like
Right, right.
because
Me too.
we just get so much taken away from us when we're doing nothing but working during the week and things weren't happening.
Yeah.
All right, so I want to ask you some questions. I want to get to know J0NNEA. I want the people to know J0NNEA. All right,
People, yes.
so that's why you're here.
Yes, right.
It's like Glo, you asked me to be here. What are you talking about? All right, so I want to start from the beginning. You were in the womb. No, I'm just kidding.
Day one, hour
Yeah,
one.
exactly. Okay, so what first pulled you into stand up? Was that something that you always knew that you wanted to do, or is that something that you kind of just discovered along the way as you got older?
Yeah, I've been interested in doing stand up since high school. And I would, watch a lot of Laugh Factory clips and things like that. But I was too scared. And then in college, I did some improv, but I'm pretty bad at improv. I
Not, yeah.
Yeah, I'm just not an actor, or like whatever, like the yes and like I couldn't. I would be like, no,
I have
actually.
boundaries.
Yeah, yeah. Or like you're supposed to stick with a character, and then I would start responding how I would respond. So anyway, I couldn't really get myself to be a different character.
Yeah.
And then I've been always interested in stand up, and then as of I guess like 2 or so years ago, my partner got me for Christmas, or no, for my birthday, a class at BCC.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And I had a class with Chanel Ali,
Cool.
and I wasn't sure how the class would go, or like what would it entail. But
Yeah.
once I was in there and like meeting Chanel, and I was like, oh, like she's the real deal. She's very serious.
Yes.
I can wrap my head around this.
Right.
And yeah, we did the class. There was a showcase, and I met a couple people who were interested. And then after that, I was like, okay, now I can do this. And
Yeah.
so started to go open mics and stuff, and so it just kind of finally figured out the nerve and like uh, maybe the strategy on how to get on stage, and then have
Yeah.
just been doing it since.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, I feel like that's a process. That's some people can just go, hey, this is, let's just get on stage, and that's how you get started. And then there are people that, like, I really do appreciate the people out there that take time and, like, really see if this is something they're going to want to get into. And then,
Hmm.
because you just got so many people in comedy that suck. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
Yeah.
But, you just never know. And you're also being vulnerable. You're in front of, like, I don't know. It's just so
Yeah,
much
it's
to
so many
process.
things.
Yeah.
I'm, I'm school. I was good at school. Having like a teacher, a class, like some structure is helpful for me. I'm
Yeah,
like, oh,
of
I see.
course.
Here's some like kind of guidelines or rules.
Yeah.
Um, and you can go from there.
Yeah, yeah, that's good. All right, so storytelling is such a huge part of comedy, but also identity.
Hmm.
How has your personal story shaped your comedic voice? Where those moments early on when you realize, that you were funny, or is that something that you just kind of had to discover?
Yeah, that's a good question. At first, when I first started, I was trying to avoid talking about myself. I wanted to be
Mm,
more like, I guess, observational, more
yeah,
objective, less
yeah.
personal because I didn't want to get into it essentially. But during one of those classes I was taking, I said my jokes and then the teacher was like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, but like how do you identify?"
Oh,
And I was like, "Oh, okay." And I realized that and it was like made clear like, "Oh yeah, like I'm saying all these things, but people don't know like what actually my point of view
yeah,
is since
yeah.
I come across as whatever, gender ambiguous, if you
Mm-hmm,
will." And
mm-hmm.
having a joke about gender and then someone coming up to me being like, "Okay, I'm sorry, but like which way?"
Mm-hmm.
you know? And I was
Yeah,
like, "Oh, okay, yeah, you're not getting my jokes."
yeah,
Right? Like, "Oh, I'm talking shit about periods and
yeah,
depending on the point of view, I'm just coming off as an asshole."
yeah,
And so I'm real or like having then like since realized that like, oh, the in order for people to know what I'm talking about, like I do have to tell them
yeah,
my like where I'm coming from.
yeah,
And like once the audience can realize that, oh, okay, there's no more questions anymore.
yeah,
Now I can like pay attention.
yeah.
Um, yeah, I had one time I was at a show and I now have an opener that like makes it so that yes, trans, yes, I see what's going on. Because
Mm-hmm.
before I had a show and I just kind of like danced around it and the host came back and was like, "Oh, thank God you said something," because I didn't know what was going on up there, and I was like,
Oh,
"Oh man." Were you so confused that entire 8 minutes that you
just
didn't hear a word I a word I said?
that.
Like, oh, I have to address it. And like whatever, like I guess the storytelling aspect, allows people to understand my jokes more when I'm
Yeah,
more honest.
yeah, yeah. Because I mean, I see your perspective because I'm one of those people where like I don't think the first thing that I don't think the first thing that needs to come out of my mouth is I'm gay. You know what I mean? Like I don't
Yeah,
think
exactly.
that there's some people that feel that that's something that they're it's so because they're more open to speaking in that way. They just want to talk about that on stage, and we know who those comedians. We've seen comedians, have a style
Hmm.
where they'll talk about certain things. But I was the same way. I was just kind of like I like people to be curious. I like them to wonder. I like that you use both pronouns so that
Hmm.
you're or two different pronouns so that you can watch people figure figure it
Yeah, watch
out.
me figure it out.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And not even like in a way where like you're trying to mess with them, but it's just kind of like you're stretching the mind a little bit more to say, hey, I'm funny. Yes, I have X, Y, and Z. I am X, Y, and Z, but I'm
Yeah.
funny. You
Yeah.
laughed, right?
Right, yeah, you left, right? Or like, even
Yeah.
the situations with the gender stuff. I'm like, I don't want people to come up and ask me weird questions, but it keeps happening to me. So,
Mhm.
you know, um I have one of my aunts is always like, "Oh, so are you going have you thought about doing jokes about other things that are not about your lifestyle?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Girl, what do you mean my lifestyle?" What are you
It's
talking
like
about?
I don't just want to be hearing about this.
Yeah, yeah. Have you tried joking about other stuff? And it's so, that's so funny. You wouldn't say that to, like, let's say like any old black comedian. Like, they want
Right.
to talk about being black. It comes up in their
Mhm.
everyday. People talk to you differently when
Yeah.
they like see you. So, um, it's funny just like how she picks like, oh, you won't stop talking about it. I'm like, people won't stop talking about it with me. They
Yeah.
keep bringing it up to me.
That's like it might be either the first thing on their mind, or I know with like queer spaces and stuff like that, maybe that's not something that you immediately, or maybe that can go into my next question, because
Mm.
I want to dig a little and just talk about, because one thing that even over my journey of comedy career, I would say, yes, you had a lot of people wanted that like queer representation. Everybody
Hmm.
wanted, oh my gosh, you're black and gay, or you're black and a lesbian, whatever like that. Okay, like
Yeah.
let's book you. You know what I mean? But one thing that I haven't seen in my years of comedy, I've been doing comedy for about 13 plus whatever, and I would say, and the entire time, I haven't. And if I don't, I just don't know. I don't know. So anybody could correct me on this, but not visibly like comedians that were funny and trans.
Hmm.
And I say that because I not to offend anybody, but the fact that like I don't want somebody just to hire me because of my identity. I want them to know that I'm funny.
Yes.
So do you feel some sense of pressure when at this point in your career, that like you have to represent the trans community, or do you feel like that's something that you don't let that get in the way? You're just gonna be Jean and be funny, and okay, that's a part of me.
As in, wait, are you asking, yeah, do I feel pressure that, like, okay, if I'm on the lineup, I gotta speak for all of us in that way? Is that what you mean?
Kind of, sort of. Like it's
Kinda?
just more of like the representation part. Like, I mean, I don't know, like all the trans comedians out there, and what their style is and stuff like that. But because no, we don't see trans comedians every day on television.
Sure.
Do you feel like in certain spaces, you know, you have to make, like you said before, there are people that are expecting you to talk about your pronouns, talk
Right.
about your identity and stuff like that. But do you feel some sort of pressure to be visible for the trans community?
Got you. I I think yes and no. I would say yes because I would say I think my style, or just like my personality, if you will, is like a bit more critical in
Mm-hmm.
general. Uh, a bit more like maybe not as careful with
Yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Um, because I'm like past that, right?
Yeah.
But and it's like it reminds me, like I had this conversation with a coworker, and she was asking me questions. I'm like, whatever, and I
Mm-hmm.
said something, and she was like, "Oh, I didn't know that," and I'm like,
Mm.
"Uh-oh, you think I'm talking about everybody? Like, wait, 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 I'm just talking about me." Like,
Yeah.
and then but at the same time, like I don't feel too much pressure because it's like this thing is true. I have to
Yeah.
talk about it. And then we, once we like establish the, what is true and what's not true, then we can like move forward.
Yeah.
Um, so I don't feel too much pressure. I do think if anything, it's kind of, I get on a lot of gay shows, and it's February, so
Right.
Black History Month.
Black and
All
gay.
of these,
What?
what? Wow, and
Yeah.
so it's funny. It's like I think if anything, it's almost harder to be like, yeah, the one, let's say, trans person on the lineup, because then it's like a weird amount of pressure,
Yeah.
because it's
Yeah.
like, oh, like, can you be that and funny? Look at
Right.
all these white boys who are just talking about porn all the time.
Right. No.
Um,
So much competition right there.
yeah, exactly, exactly. So I guess short answer is like yes and no.
Yeah.
Do I feel like I have to like represent? Because it's just, yeah, it's just about me. I try to be clear, like this is my experience. This is my personality.
Yeah.
Um, but I can't really control what someone in the audience may be thinking.
Yeah, yeah. So do you think that, like, as far as like are you in any way, do you, when you're writing and you're, as far as like your material and stuff like that, are you thinking of, when you're going to each room, are you thinking of like, okay, are they going to accept me if I bring it up? Or are they just going to kind of let me, do I have to tell my, because there are moments I'm like, is this a crowd that's ready for all my hardcore like lesbian jokes?
Yeah, yeah.
And there are moments where like I think it's hilarious to do stuff in front of a straight crowd, especially black folks, because I think that especially rooms in Brooklyn can be very welcoming, and there are other
Hmm.
rooms that I know about that are very welcoming either way. They're just like, one person has told me in a straight room, straight considered room, whatever, or
Yeah.
crowd, has told me, you got to stick with you. You got to always believe in you. It doesn't matter. We don't got to have nothing in common, you know?
Hmm.
And that was a black woman that told me that. Now, I had a great set, so maybe she thought I bombed or something, but I was, but
She's
you
like, it's
know,
okay, honey. Like, why are you
you're right.
saying that?
Hey, baby, you're going to be all right. But
Yeah.
the reason why I love this conversation about being queer, or with people who are like trans or non-binary, or not that that's the same thing, but non-binary, whether they identify as female, male, whatever like that.
Hmm.
But we have to remember that we have to accept almost like our own identity before we can get in front of an audience and talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. And that does come to mind. Like I get nervous if I like look at a crowd and I'm like, oh man, is this going to hit? Is this going to feel like a weird TED talk? Because that's also my fear. Like I
Yeah.
never want it to be like so informative that
Hmm.
you're like, wow, that was interesting versus like
Yeah.
nothing. Um,
Yeah.
no, I definitely have that thought, but then I like I'll have that thought and I'm like, okay, so let me think of my jokes, and then I'm like,
Hmm.
oh right, okay, right, we're just going to talk about myself.
Yeah.
Like I have that moment of time, like, well, let's. And in some ways, I try to like, if anything, perhaps like make myself feel better. It's like, okay, well, if I'm the one that's so different
Hmm.
on the lineup, then I should at least be memorable, right?
Hmm.
Like
Hmm.
I have seen, the few times I get a chance to go to Manhattan
Yeah.
and like Greenwich Village, or
Yeah.
what have you. It's so many of the same jokes.
Yeah.
Like
Oh.
I think people come up to me after and be like, "Oh, it was a good set." Like I don't even know if they laughed. I think they just remember.
Yeah.
Like,
They
oh,
they
I
just
remember what you were about.
right,
You know?
right. I think, and that's one thing that's almost a good thing to stand out a lot, because a lot of people are just like, "Oh, Grace said I've been mistaken for another comedian or something like that." So
Yeah.
I understand how that feels, but definitely like, yeah, you're preparing. We're prepared for everything. I think when we go into any of these spaces, because you just never know how people are going to receive what you have going on.
Hmm.
So I want to step outside of you as an artist. I know you said that like you had interest in comedy, and then you took a class, and then got into it and whatnot. But as far as like your journey from childhood to like adulthood, and all the different changes, and like, hey, I want to be a comedian, I also have a career or a full-time job, and then I have, as far as like family, does family support the decisions that you make, and believe in everything that you do, because a lot of us don't
Hmm.
have that. So I would just say, do you feel that support system from like family as you were able to grow into the real person that you are?
Yeah, yeah. I would say I'm both very lucky, very fortunate that my parents are quite supportive. I'm an only child.
Oh,
I
nice.
do think that helps in some way.
Oh
All their
man.
focus, all their attention is onto me. They can't hate me. There's no other one, right?
Yeah.
So, um, but
That's
no, I've been
real.
very fortunate to, they've always been supportive. They definitely have a lot of questions of like, so why are you doing that? What are you doing now? Things
Mm-hmm.
like
Those
that. But
concerns.
yeah, but I think at this point, they trust me in the sense, like, I mean, they still, any sort of plan, they poke all the holes in it.
Yeah.
But at this point, I think they trust me a bit more to be like, okay, well, you've made it this far. And you've been
Mm-hmm.
able to navigate situations and like make decisions properly.
Mm-hmm.
But they're excited. Um, my parents, they're both like, don't talk about us. And then they're like, well,
Mm.
you haven't brought this up. I'm like, what do you want?
Yeah.
So,
You're
so they
like,
want
this
to
is
keep themselves on stage, I guess.
They do, and I think we look at comedians like Aziz Ansari, or we see like comedians that talk about their parents that are storytellers, and Aziz
Hmm.
Ansari is a great example of
Yeah.
that, because what he did was, he would always do like, yes, impressions of his parents, or like, just like, that the experience, and he's a heterosexual guy, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
But like, as far as it's universal. Every comedian is going to experience their families kind of being like, okay, are you going through some type of crisis? Why are
Yeah,
you doing
exactly.
stand-up comedy? Why would you choose something that that you're unsure of how financially it's going to support you, you know.
Yeah, I mean that's and I've been lucky enough to have like right the a job that's remote, and so I haven't had to defend. Eventually I would like to dedicate all of my time to do stand up and
Yeah.
just trying to navigate that. So they haven't had to watch me be like actually no 9 to 5,
Yeah.
just this. So that's why
Hmm.
I think they've been like, okay, sure, do your little hobby, do. Oh, okay. Is that what you're doing? Oh, that's
Yeah.
so cute. Okay. Do
Yeah.
your thing. And so thankfully I've been able to like, maintain both so it
Hmm.
doesn't feel too dire. But eventually I'm going to, make that switch,
Yeah.
so I can focus more on it.
That's good, especially when you see your career picking up and you're doing things that are just different and you're actually getting, I would just say this, when you're getting paid and getting booked on good and big gigs where you're catching a lot of exposure, management is coming, agents are coming, it's like so much good is coming. And the one thing that I like about you, and I have always recommend you to any queer show I could possibly think of,
Oh, thank
because
you.
like I said, there's few of people that I feel we need more trans comedians on stage. We need more non-binary comedians on stage, and I say that because yes, I can be a black lesbian, but I think that's easy to see. You know what I mean? I don't care how many. There are a lot of black lesbians, comedians that are just not out of the closet. You know what I mean? Like, but I'm not gonna spill any tea today. I'm not
Name
gonna,
names.
right? I'll drop some names.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
some y'all don't even know about.
Yeah,
No,
right.
but I think that you bring something unique to the stage
Mhm.
and something that the stage needs. And so I hope when people see you that they also feel encouraged to just be themselves. You don't even got to be like trans or queer or anything like that, but just knowing that you've built yourself, into this person that you've created. Like yes, your
Mhm.
parents create you physically, but you're the
Mhm.
one that we all have to make our own adjustments and changes to ourselves, and speak out. Like, so are you like, do you advocate? Are you like within the like community of like protesting and just making sure you advocate for like other trans folks like in your sets and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I try to. I definitely can always do more, always do a better job. Um, and I like, I definitely enjoy like supporting like the other trans comics in the Brooklyn alt scene, if you will,
Mm-hmm.
and trying to show up for shows like, and outside of the stage when you have like these different protests, these different grassroots organizations or community events. Um, I definitely try to make myself present or visible. I could do also a better job at that for sure. But it's all, and when I think of those things, like it's all rather connected, even if it's just kind of shaky. There's a few comedians
Yeah.
who was it like Esther Fallick, like she stays organizing.
Mm-hmm.
She had a thing over the weekend for trans kids at like Union Square and stuff, and like
Beautiful.
just seeing that sort of like kind of overlap, and
Mm-hmm.
what is comedy but just like saying the true things out loud, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's kind
Yeah.
of what a megaphone at a protest is. It's like saying the true things out loud. So
Yeah.
um, it all feels very interconnected, and all the different pieces of it are quite important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And then like, and then what I also find that is that it's more of like an educational moment than people, because there are a lot of like men and weird people in the audience that are just waiting for the uncomfortable, like for something that like is just, I don't know, you know what I mean, like just like something that is unrelated to what needs to be taught about, because like you said, not every trans person is alike. They don't do everything alike. They don't go by the same pronouns. They don't do,
Hmm.
nothing is alike. So don't go, you might see J0NNEA, don't go to another another comedian saying, oh yeah, well I know J0NNEA and J0NNEA does this. Well,
Yeah,
chill,
like no, no, no. We're all quite different.
yeah.
It's so fun. Like they have like the T for T shows at Metropolitan.
Yeah, oh
There'll
yeah,
be
I
like
know
the
about
all
that.
trans shows or the Not a Boy, Not a Girl with Will. And it's so it's so funny. You can see how everyone like how does everyone come out on stage?
Mm-hmm.
They all say their pronouns, like and it's like all these different like levels of like cynicism, or someone
Mm-hmm.
said it's all about being trans, or
Yeah.
trans jokes, and then and obviously, yeah, it's just like a variety and seeing people like, okay, yeah, how do you approach this? What for whatever reason is like this vaguely controversial topic.
Yeah.
You know, okay, you are someone of that topic. How do you go about it? Are you angry? Are you you know? And so
Yeah.
seeing everyone's different approaches is always interesting. I always hear a joke and I'm like, oh fuck,
Yeah.
that's the one I should have done. Okay,
Yeah.
cross that off. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so.
For sure. And so, like, do you find do you find balance in keeping what's private or what you just want to keep for yourself versus what you choose to tell? Have you found that balance yet, like in comedy?
I think so. I think I'm trying to, if anything, I think I'm trying to approach a level where I can like maybe expose more or like say
Mm-hmm.
more. I feel
Mm-hmm.
like there's certain topics or certain things like, you know, in whatever like private life or what have you that I'm like I'm not articulate enough yet
Yeah.
to like
I
make
hear
that
you.
funny
Yeah.
versus just like like saying this is how I feel.
Yeah.
You know? And so I think for me personally, yeah, I would like to approach like I feel like these different tiers of like when I can say more on stage, that means I have gotten better.
Yeah.
Because now I can handle it and I figured out a way to communicate it so that an audience can handle it too.
Yeah, it's a special skill that definitely gets stronger over time. It's not that you don't already have it. It's just that there's a lot of things probably at this point that you're writing about. Out, like you said, you're a very observant person, so there's other things outside of yourself that you focus on, and that's also something I'm working on too. Is do not talking about. I don't know why, but it's getting on my nerves hearing about myself. myself.
No, I feel that.
Yeah.
And it's so funny. I'm like, right, I'm like, oh, this is good. And then I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh my God.
This
Like,
whole set, right? It talks about who I eat, what I eat, what my
yeah,
parents were like, what was sex like. Like it's just like
yeah,
every
yeah.
little thing is you. But there's no better person to talk about is yourself. You know what I mean?
Right,
That's
exactly.
it's it's one of those things that I feel like it's a gift to have. It's a gift to be able to just like see things and be like, okay, I'm gonna turn that into a joke. Because a lot of times when I do that, turn it into a story about me or that I'm experiencing. You know
Yes.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It's story. That's the part of storytelling that like I need to yank myself out of. Is this like I just want to tell a story about a situation and not put myself in it. You know?
Right, right. Yeah.
So
Yeah, I'm trying to do
um,
yeah, like yeah, the observational bit.
yeah.
But there's one thing like cuz so in school I was a studio art major.
Uh huh.
So that's my I guess if you will background. And I remember having a class where like someone was like, how am I ever supposed to make a piece
Mm-hmm.
if it's not just accidentally copying someone else?
Yeah.
And the professor had this point of just like, yeah, well, if you do an art piece about you,
Mm-hmm.
then it's totally unique because
Yeah.
it's like always going to be one of a kind.
Right.
Um, and I always thought that was pretty good because like any sort of self portrait is kind of self indulgent,
Mm-hmm.
but it's only one person, you, who did
Mm-hmm.
it about yourself. Like that actually
Right.
has never happened before, so that's a
Yeah.
brand new idea.
Yeah.
Uh, so I try to keep that in mind, but I mean, again, also trying to resist the urge of like, okay, this also happened to me,
Yeah.
to keep talking about myself.
Yeah. Yeah, but I mean, at the end of the day, it's kind of like I look at it this way: like, there's a lot of comedians that do it, and when they're funny, they're funny. I like every story they like. There's millions of times somebody's like talking about their kid, and they do a great job talking about their kids. I'm like,
Hmm.
keep it going, you know? Or
Hmm.
like they. I don't ever. I think it's just a you thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's just
yeah.
something that you're experiencing, that you're thinking. The audience is how they're looking at you. Like, why is it always about him? You know?
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Oh, we get
But
it.
yeah, right, exactly. Enough.
Yeah, enough already.
So I guess my final question before we get into this fun game that I have planned for
Okay.
us is, what would you tell your younger self? What would you say to your younger self?
My younger self.
What advice would you
Um,
give your younger self?
I think my younger self knew what he wanted pretty quickly, but just
Okay,
kept maybe being worried about what other people said or
absolutely.
thinking. So I think if I could meet my younger self, I'm like just keep doing it. Whatever you're
Mm-hmm.
doing, just keep doing it. It's okay. People you like will like it. People who
Yeah,
don't like it won't like. It'll work
yeah,
out. So I think I was a pretty nervous kid. So if I could tell
Yeah.
myself, hey, shh, it's all right. You're doing a
Yeah.
good job. Keep it up.
Just relax. Wait, what's your sign?
I'm a Libra.
You're a Libra. Okay. What's your
Hmm.
moon
Libra,
and your rising?
Taurus.
Okay. Is that Taurus? Maybe the Taurus. I don't know if Taurus rising, like the rising sign, affects like the way you move in life. I know that how like people see you as a Taurus,
Right, right.
but I was wondering because like that's a huge like trait, like Earth sign trait. You know what I mean? Where you're just like so in your head over trying to make things like trying to take the right steps. You
Yes,
know, and just like
yes.
not giving yourself a chance to be a kid and freaking
I was
realize.
very, I was
Like
very,
just a
very
little nervous.
serious.
Oh, right. You're like, what's going on? What is
Yeah,
this world? It's like
I
you've been here
know.
before. You're like, it's like this shit is trash.
Yeah,
All right, so that's beautiful. Thank you, Jeanne, for that, and just
of
letting us
course.
dig in and get to know you a little bit more. So I want to play a fun game
Okay,
just to close things up. So this is just a little rapid fire game. I'm gonna kind of speak in a way of the audience, but to the audience who's listening, the listeners right now, I'm gonna give Jeanne a situation, and he's gonna tell me whether it's a joke, like he can turn it into a joke, laugh,
hmm,
or walk from it, leave it. So you're either gonna say
okay,
laugh or walk,
okay,
or leave it. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So all
okay.
right. So here we go. A relative tells you you should put me in your comedy set, which I think you heard that from your parents, right?
Yes.
It's already a bit. It's already a
It's already
bit.
good. Laugh. They
All right.
upset now. I keep talking bad about them. Why would you
Good.
tell people? Well,
Because
that's what you get.
right, you're like, this is my perspective.
Yeah, you keep talking crazy to me. So,
Right? That's too funny. It's like, all right, you bomb a set and someone from the audience comes up afterwards with notes. Do you find that you laugh about it or you just leave it?
I would laugh about it.
Yeah.
Notes, that's bold.
Yeah. And
I'm gonna
some
tell on you.
and a lot of times those interactions, yes, it might suck, but at the same time, it's actually funny when you reuse it on stage. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, because
yeah.
people are like, no way. Um, let's see. A booker tells you they're looking for a different kind of diversity.
Yeah, I'm gonna laugh about
We gonna have to because ain't nobody got no time. We can't cry. We can't
it.
cry right here.
Everything you're asking me, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to tell on you. I'm going
Yeah.
to tell people you did that.
Right.
I'm a
But
tattletale.
right.
Like,
That's what our special skill is as comedians is we turn something extremely dark, make it funny. I mean, look at Kendrick Lamar, okay? Like, for
hmm,
those who aren't aware, this is being filmed the day after the Super Bowl. So,
right.
Kendrick is like that's the energy I need to bring to the with comedy. You know what I mean? Are you gonna say some wild stuff? I'm about to get on stage and talk
Yeah,
about it.
exactly.
Jeez. Okay. So a childhood friend says, you've always been funny, but I never thought you'd actually be a comedian." I feel like we all heard that.
Um, I I would laugh about it.
Yeah.
Tattletale. I'll name names. This person. Someone once, I hadn't started doing comedy, but I was talking about it, and they're like, "Oh, well, you were so shy in high school." And I was
Right.
like, "That was so long ago."
Yeah.
Okay. Also, I wasn't that shy. What are you talking about? Anyway,
Yeah. I don't know why people say, and I get it because there's a lot of comedians that are just socially awkward. But
mhm.
I was told that, and I was like class clown in high school, like
Oh,
voted.
really?
Yeah, but it's the people you're around, that bring
Yeah.
out. They know that you're funny. Like I feel like you're a person where like I actually, when you talk to you, you know what I mean. When I've spoken to you, like it's the same interaction. It's like you got to really just like if that person, if you can be silly and that person feels that energy, like they can just say whatever off the wall to you,
Hmm.
then that's different. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
like people who think I'm shy, that's because I wasn't comfortable around you.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Actually, the problem with you,
Yeah.
like, you made me nervous.
Right, exactly. I was like, I don't want to say too much.
Yeah.
All right, and the last one is you get booked on a show that calls itself a safe space, but you show up and the crowd is questionable. Oh
Yeah,
my,
I'm gonna laugh
yeah.
about it.
I had a show like that months ago, but yeah, I
I,
would say that shit is mad uncomfortable
I had
because
a show after the election. I had a show after
Oh,
the election, and so, it was they were nice, but it was mostly white, and
yeah,
so I like made a point, and they did not like that,
yeah.
they were like, that's not it was not our fault. And I'm like, okay.
I was
My
like, and what they fail to realize is like when we talk about like white people as a whole, like you don't got to be a part of this group that we're specifically talking about. You know what I mean? That's why
Mhm.
the white people we call racist. If you don't think you're racist, you know you don't gotta say nothing, right? It's
No.
like you know you got some aunties out there that's just like, all right.
Yeah, right. You know who I'm talking about.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's always the guilty ones that speak up. You know what I mean? That speak too
Not
loud.
me. Like, whoa. I feel like I didn't say your name.
Did I mention you on stage?
Yeah.
That is too funny. Yeah, I felt like the day, definitely the day after the election. I was hosting a show too, and yeah, it was they were the crowd was supportive.
Right, right.
You know
The
what?
crowd was desperate to laugh, I would say.
Yeah. Uh
They're
huh.
like, ha 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 ha. I'm like, all right, all right.
Yeah.
Okay. Forcing it.
It
But
it was uncomfortable, but it was like the last time this dude won. I refuse to say his name on my platform, but like the last time he won, I would say that it was a weird feeling like that too. You know what I mean? But I think that's one of those things. I don't think I had to perform right after like that.
mm,
So I think this one hit different, and it was
yeah.
even more depressing. But
Yeah.
yes, it is what it is. I would say for anybody out there who's never been to a comedy show, go to a comedy show. We're gonna need it, especially in these next 4 years. Support Jeanne,
That's
one of
right.
the funniest comedians out there. Jeanne, where can everyone find you? Like, where's your social? Do you have any upcoming shows? This is gonna be launched late March,
Okay,
so
cool.
anything following March.
Anything following March? I know I have a show March 11th. It's a fundraiser for Zohan's or the new mayor,
Oh,
the socialist
yeah,
mayor.
yeah,
Hopefully, get Eric Adams out of here.
yes,
But if the date is past March 11th, when
yeah.
when this airs, you can find me at on my Instagram. It's J0NNEA. So it's just my first name with a zero instead of an O because that name was taken somehow.
Oh,
So
really?
yeah.
Yeah. So you're like, I'm gonna just
Um,
add a zero. I
Yeah,
I was always wondering that, and now like I spell your name with a zero everywhere, and
really?
like, yeah, I couldn't find you on Venmo one time because I was like, because
Oh yeah,
I
it's a
wasn't.
zero.
It's like God.
That's right. It's J0NNEA, like on X, on
Alex,
Instagram, Twitter. I call it by its formal name. It's
are
a
you
TED name.
are you gonna get right? Are you gonna get a Blue Sky account?
I guess I barely like. I'm not one of the comedians that like tweets a lot. I'm always
Yeah,
looking. I feel like that's how
yeah.
I get my news, but my news is becoming more Nazi adjacent. So
Mm,
I might have to, I might have to
yeah,
go on to Blue Sky, and probably hopefully it'll be the same username. Try to
yeah,
keep it J0NNEA, but
yeah,
Instagram is the best place to look up
yeah.
shows and my thoughts, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah. All right, so y'all follow J0NNEA Herman with a zero now
That's
on
right.
Instagram. All right, J0NNEA. Well, thank you so much for joining me
Oh,
today. Let's
thank you,
chatting it up
for
and stuff.
thank you for
Yeah.
reaching out. Definitely for those listening, support Glow. Go to the shows, go to the
Oh, thank you.
podcast,
All that
go to the
stuff.
Instagrams. That's right, all the things. So
All
thank you so
right.
much for the conversation.
Of course, thank you. And that wraps up on today's episode of Undefining. J0NNEA Herman took us on a ride through comedy, storytelling, and the unexpected ways identity shows up on stage and in life. If you enjoy this conversation, make sure to follow Undefining on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, stay connected on social at Undefining the Podcast for more episodes, updates, and behind the scenes moments. Until next time, stay curious, stay open, and keep undefining. Undefining.